Hey there. Happy July. So after my listening to my last vlog, I realized that while I highlighted the importance of accommodating different playstyles and how that's particularly relevant for unranked games, I didn't really talk too much about how to actually do it. So I'm going to try to do that today, but it's going to be hard because there's kind of like an infinite number of ways to approach design problems, but I'm just going to talk about some of the common issues that I see. So for one side of the spectrum, if your game breaks when players are playing too cooperatively, then that's usually a sign that your game needs more barriers to cooperation. And some of my favorite tricks to this are things that restrict your players' ability to cooperate. Things like communication restrictions. So players have to read more into like the actions that they're taking on the game state and have to make judgments whether they're honest mistakes when they do a goof or if that's like a sneaky attempt at betrayal. More ways for players to sort of doubt each other's intentions and motives. More ways to make them second guess the nature of the other players, and communication restrictions are a good way of doing that. Like hidden information is a really valuable way of doing that, because with that you don't have to restrict communication. If something's hidden, then there's seeds of doubts, like with whatever they say is going on there. But another way you might tackle this too cooperative is too easy problem is it might be a sign that your game's too easy, like the underlying puzzle of the game is like too solvable if players are working like in tandem. So ways to address that: maybe make resources scarcer. You can make it so that the puzzle is more complicated. More people have to be cooperating at a time. In more people have to be cooperating more perfectly, like having to be fully in sync with more people as opposed to just like a few people at a time. Just ways of making this puzzle trickier, or more challenging, or require more perfect play, so that even when players are like hugging it out, that they still have to like solve like a challenging problem. Like in that kind of scenario, imagine that it's like a cooperative game and you're trying to make that cooperative experience shine, with the underlying possibility of betrayal. Now, if we were to move over to the other side of the spectrum, what do you do when like a player playing aggressively breaks the game? Well, we're starting to get into more messy territory. Because on one hand, maybe you want the game to break in that scenario. I know personally, if a bunch of people are playing aggressively, I want things to fall apart. I like maybe one person will play their cards right and ek across the finish line, but sometimes you want the message to be like, oh, you shouldn't play like that. but but that being said, if most players are playing cooperatively, I personally see it as an issue if one player defecting is able to side rail the entire experience and break the game. I think that's a problem. And for those kind of scenarios, usually you need some tools for like policing, or like basically, yeah, dealing with this defecting player. And this too is a complicated thing, because any tools you give to empower cooperative players can be weaponized by defecting players. So like if you give them some powerful tool to attack another player, the defector could easily use that to attack the cooperating players. So I like to give these tools a cost to them. So like maybe they're only used as a last-ditch effort to combat a villainous player, or maybe they're used as a last-ditch effort to claw back into the game. That's the way I usually look at these things. So to give some examples, in Bread, I introduced walls as a way to isolate a player that's causing lots of problems. So like if one player is stealing but everybody else is cooperating, the cooperating players could build walls on them so they can't interfere so much. But I also introduced the displace action, where you basically burn down your entire engine in order to steal little pieces off of somebody else's engine. So that's like a very destructive way to claw back into the game, but it's also like something you could do if somebody takes all of your stuff. And then in Curse VHS, the way we added like this policing ability was that when you siphon towards a player that's siphoning towards you, you both lose cards for that siphon. And this was a way for a player to break the chain if somebody was always stealing through them, but it was also a way for them to sort of punish a player that kept trying to steal in their direction. Like if you knew that you were going to get hit back, then you might think again about like just rampantly stealing. And sometimes you need something as simple as just like the ability to vote somebody off the island, or just the threat that you could get voted off the island. Most people don't really want to go there, but sometimes just knowing that that option is on the table is enough for people to start behaving a little better. But yeah, just some random examples. If you've got a specific example, hit me up. Put a message in the comments, hit me up on Blue Sky, whatever, and we'll talk it out. Maybe we could come up with like some solution towards the way to accommodate the play styles that are kind of wrecking your game. If you could balance these things right, then you can have an experience that shines, whether you've got like cutthroat little gremlins or cozy little huggers. Alright? Right. So, for this month's Unranked highlight, I wanted to talk about Draconian, which is another Unranked game by Barber, designer of Sykes-Picot. In this game, you are different factions that are vying for different things as a sitting king is losing power. It's shifted a lot since I've playtested it, between playtests of it, so I'm not 100% the state that it's in now, but last time I played it, you kind of picked between these different outcomes you wanted, whether you wanted to be part of the rebellion, or if you wanted to usurp the king as a challenger, or if you wanted to reinforce the king's power as a loyalist. And the way you'd converge on one of these outcomes is by playing this sort of blackjack-like game. You'd compare your hand against the royal hand, and if your hand exceeded the royal hand, you sort of bust, and the king starts infiltrating your deck by adding some royal cards to your deck. But if you manage to not surpass the king, then whoever has the highest hand wins and pleases the king, and all the bets on them go into the royal court, into the royal deck. And then all the cards that were bet on the losing hand end up going into the rebellion deck. And then so if the royal hand is ever made up of a specific player's cards more than royal cards, then that player will have successfully usurped as a challenger. But if a player's hand has mostly royal cards as opposed to their own, then the king will have infiltrated their court and reinforced their power through it. And then if the rebellion's hand was the winning hand, which is hard because it has fewer cards and it's made up of like losing cards, then the rebellion would successfully happen. So this sounds like a lot. It sounds really messy, but it lends for like really messy sort of gameplay, because like your motivations could be so complicated. Like you might bet on somebody because you something I forgot to mention is that when you bet on somebody, it adds to the total of their hand. So you might bet on somebody because you want them to bust, and you want the king to infiltrate their deck because you're a loyalist. But you also might bet on somebody because you genuinely think they're going to win, and you want to get your cards into the court to try to usurp the king. But you might also bet on somebody because you think they're going to lose, and you want to put some good cards into the rebellion deck. So there's like so much like mind games that could go on here. There's so many complicated like motivations and reasons why you might do something, and if you find out somebody's trying to like get you to surpass the king, you might like leverage that to try to like challenge the king. Like it's there's so much going on there, and I really have a great time every time I play it. I love to see how like that game is in such a state of flux. So I'm like really excited to see like where it eventually lands. Everything Brooks does is awesome. It's not fair. Okay. So as for my updates, I've been planning a second printing of Vibes. You actually follow the campaign page here. And part of that is to restock my dwindling supply of Vibes, and also to test out a new green printer. But in the process of preparing for it, I've been thinking about Dan Thoreau's feedback and how he had mentioned that sort of wistfully that he wished that the students had a bit more personality, kind of like the goofballs. And I've been kind of like toying around with that. At first I was like trying like card powers, but that quickly made things way too complicated no matter how simple I tried to get those effects to be. But what I eventually landed on that I really like is giving a little bit of text on the cards where the students kind of give you tiny mini victory conditions. These are basically the students' wants. And sometimes the students want you to play a specific way, sometimes they want you to act a certain way, sometimes they want to be somewhere like on the game, or they want to be in a group with somebody else or not with somebody. And so this was my way of giving them a bit of personality. And the cool thing is that if you're brand new to this game, you could kind of just ignore it as flavor text. But if you're familiar with Vibes, you could go hard mode, and you could try to get a group that vibes where you also meet all the needs of all your students. And so far I'm really liking the feel of it. I might make like a little sticker pack so that you could update your Scrabble edition to match the new participation award version, but still figuring things out. For Conviction, I have commissioned a new artist for it, and I'm really liking the direction she's taking it. Little fun bit of trivia: this was the original artist that I wanted, but another artist had gotten back to me sooner, and I've always kind of regretted it a little bit. So I'm happy to have her working on it now. You can have a little sneak peek at some of the sketch work for it. What I really like about it is that she's really capturing the kind of original like vision I had for these better, and she's really capturing the emotions for it. I submitted this for the indie night market. I'm really hoping I get in because I've been wanting to get this game out there for a long time. Everything else I'm working on is still trucking along. Been making minor tweaks to the Breads rulebook. The artwork for it is in the works, should be ready soon. Things just moving along slowly, you know. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Hope you're holding up. Things are pretty crazy. Trans rights. Screw certain wizard people. And yeah. You have a good day. Yeah. Yeah. Look. I'm filled with magic. I got this at Hot Topic. I think Hot Topic gets a bad rep. I bet that sounded good. Drink more water.